Hi, I'm Mike Fenton, and this is Inside Casting. There are many things that happen in a casting director's career. Some of them funny, some of them tragic, but they're all wonderful experiences. We were doing a film called E.T., and there was a young man who the producer and Stephen and Jane Feinberg and I liked a lot. And he was up for a pilot film. And of course, nobody knew what E.T. was. The scripts weren't out. We didn't even know what E.T. was. Because frankly, there's no way to tell if a motion picture is going to be successful until you're 6 or 8 weeks into it. And even then, unless you're some type of a swami, how do you know the picture is going to work? We only know a picture works if the audience tells us the picture works. But going back to E.T., we'd chosen a young man, and his people decided that he would be better off doing a pilot film. So he disappeared. We were about 3 weeks from shooting, and Jane and I we were beating the bushes, as they say. We were almost ready to have an open call. Open calls are disastrous. They're not fun. They're usually not very rewarding. Kathy Kennedy, our producer, was watching some film in a screening room. She was looking for a director. And she looked at this footage and she called me and she said, "Can you come up here right away? I may have found our boy, Elliot." So I went to the screening room and I looked at this film with Kathy and I said, "You're right, he is terrific." We quickly found Stephen, brought him into the screening room. Stephen looked at about 1 minute of Henry Thomas and he said, "Mike, get him here." So I went back to the office, found out that he lived in Texas. I don't have a great deal of knowledge about Texas. I know it's a big state. I was led to believe by his Texas agent that he lived close to Dallas. And I said, "Great, let's put him on an airplane tomorrow. We'll have a ticket waiting for him and fly him to Los Angeles, and we'll bring him in. We'll send you the script. And by the way, it's a numbered script. It's been under lock and key, and so nobody's seen it. But he and his mom can see it, and we'll test him." But what we didn't know was that Henry Thomas lived like 4 hours outside of Dallas. So Henry and his mom tootled into Dallas, and they had, I believe it was an 8 o'clock or an 8:15 flight, got on the airplane. Poor Henry was already exhausted. He had been up for so long. And don't forget, there's a 2-hour time difference between Los Angeles and Dallas. So they arrived, and a car and driver picked him up, brought him to MGM, which is now called Columbia or Sony. And I introduced myself to him, and I took him down to our video room and let him start playing games. I spoke to his mother, and Stephen said, "Mike, take him over to the commissary and buy him lunch." So I took Henry and his mom to the commissary, and we sat and chatted about the weather and who knows what, the Dallas Cowboys. And about 1 o'clock, I said, "Come on, let's go and test." Now, you have to remember, 2-hour time change, and Henry had been up for 4 hours before he ever got on the airplane. I'm looking at Henry at lunch, and his eyes are kind of getting glassy. And I'm thinking to myself, well, maybe that's just the kid. He has low energy. And so I took him into the testing room, and one of my assistants ran the camera, and I did a scene with him. And as we got to the end of the scene, Henry's head started to loll. I said, "Henry, are you all right?" He said, "Yeah, I'm just a little tired." So I ran the tape, and boy, it showed. He had no energy. So I sent Henry off to the video room where he could play some games. And I brought Stephen in. I said, "Stephen, this isn't working." I said, "This kid possibly has it, but it just isn't happening. Stephen looked at the test and he said, you know, you're right. He said, let's do the following. When you get to the bottom of the page, at the end of the scene, I want you to attack Henry. I want you to tell Henry that you represent the United States government and that you're going to take E.T. to Washington and do experiments on him. So we did the test scene. We got to the bottom of the page. And in my meanest demeanor, I said, Henry, I want to tell you that I represent the government and we need to experiment on E.T. Henry's eyes got huge and he looked at me. He said, no, you can't do it. You can't take E.T. away. Don't do it. He's my friend. And off camera, Stephen said, it's okay, Henry. You got the job.